In this video we will create our first module and controller, and I want to start with something simple. And actually here, as you can see, I opened again our API specification, and here is one endpoint list of tags. And as you can see, this is how it looks like. So actually this is the response as an object with field tags, and inside we have an array of our possible tags for our application. And as you can see, inside this is simply a strings. And here is how it looks like in frontend. So here I opened Angular Real World IO, so this is one of the frontends for our API. And here on the right you can see popular tags block. And these are all tags that we have in this application. So actually what we need to build is an entity tag, and then inside we will store all our popular tags. But in this video we will make it easy with our database just by creating a new module for our tag and new controller. So let's open our editor and now jump inside source directory. As you can see here in source we have everything flat, so we have here app controller, app module, app service and main. But the point is that we will create a lot of different APIs, like an API for the user, authentication, profiles, tags, lists, and so on. Which actually means if we will just throw all data here, it will be a mess. This is why the good approach is to isolate everything inside modules. So the idea is that we have here app module, this is our main module, and then for example for tags we can create new module, and then later we have maybe articles. Then we create a new module and isolate everything which is related to articles inside that specific module. So let's create here a new folder and call it tag. So actually the name convention that I like is to name all our modules as singular. This is why it will be tag or profile or user or maybe article. Now inside tag, let's create our tag.module.ts. And as you can see, we always create a module file for our new module. And here's the important part. The first one is going the name of our module. Then we have this postfix module, and it is important. In Nest.js, we are naming all our entities with postfix. In this case, we really see what it is about. Now on the right, let's open our app module so we can look how it works. As you can see here, our main idea is to export a class. This is why here I will write export class, and here will be tag module. And again, it's not tag, it's tag module, so this postfix is important. Secondly, we are using here a decorator module to specify some additional configuration for our module. So here what we need to do is write add module, and here as you can see I have an autocomplete from Nest.js common, because you really want this autocomplete. You don't want to type every import on your own. So in this case I just typed module and then I got auto imports, and we will have lots of imports. This is why we should not write them by hand. Secondly, inside module, as you can see, we must provide an object with some properties. So now we successfully created our first empty module. It doesn't do anything, and at this moment it's not binded inside our application. So what we must do to bind it is jump back in our app module and import it here. Because for now our tag module is not registered inside our application. So we need to jump here in app module and inside imports array write our new tag module. And as you can see, I also get an autocomplete here. So here is the important part. As you can see, we have lots of stuff here. We have imports, controllers, and providers. And actually all dependencies of our module we are writing inside imports. This is why here we have our app module, which is the main module, and here we define our dependencies of app module, which actually means if we want to bind new modules to our application, we also need always to register them here inside imports. Now let's check that we don't have any errors, so let's jump back inside our yarn start. As you can see, here is my web server, and as you can see, no errors here, which means we binded everything successfully. And we can also jump in browser and reload this localhost 3000, and as you can see, our API request is still there, which actually means that everything is working. Now we must create a controller. So the question is, what is controller? It is a place where we define in all our APIs, which actually means if here we open our API structure, and as you can see here is the request get tags /API/tags. So we want to create this request. And to do this, we need a controller, because this is the only place inside Nest.js where we're registering our URLs, so our API. In this case, I want to jump back in our project and create here a new file, and I will name it tag controller.ts. And again, tag is the name of the module, controller is our postfix, and ts is an extension. Now what we want here, we want to create a class, and the class will be tag controller. The next step is to add here decorator controller. And actually here in Nest.js we're writing a lot of decorators because it's really sugary stuff to add some additional properties or additional logic. In this case I am auto importing controller from Nest.js common. And actually if we don't write this line, then nothing will work, because then it's not Nest.js controller. In this case we're registering that this is exactly the controller. So we created this file and our first class, but we also need to bind it to our module, because for now, without binding it to our module, this file is not visible for our app. For this, we need to jump in our tag module, and here inside our module, we can create new property which is called controllers. And here is the array of our controllers that we can provide here. And in our case, it will be tag controller. So once again, what we are doing here, this thing is called dependency injection. So we're injecting dependencies and split all our application in modules. And in this case, we defined our tag module, and inside we have some isolated stuff. In our case, the isolated stuff is this tag controller. It's not visible from the outside, but actually it will be binded correctly when we are binding to our app module this tag module. It's also really important that we can now remove completely tag module, for example, and then it is just gone from our application, because everything related to tag module is defined inside. Now it's time to create our first route. So let's jump back in our tag controller, and here we must provide some functions. And actually when we're creating here a function, then we will create here a new route. And actually let's open on the right here our app controller TS. As you saw here, it looks a little bit similar like we wrote, so we have here controller and class, and here is get function. So when we want for some API to return some data, we must create here a function. So as you can see here, we have function getHello, where we're rendering this hello world string. And if inside tag controller we want to return our list of tags, like you can see here, then we must create here additional function. And we can name this function how we want. So we can write here foo, but of course we want something human readable. And actually the idea is that our /API/tags returns for us the array of all possible tags. This is why here I will name it find all, which means actually we will find all our tags here and return them. Now inside we can simply return whatever we want. For example, here let's say that we have several tags, dragons, and maybe coffee. So these are our array of tags. Of course it is mocked, but this is good for now. But the next point is that we didn't register any API. As you can see here, we simply created a method inside our class. So what is important is to add here on the top of our function decorator, and we can name it get, for example. As you can see, get decorator, and don't forget round brackets, is a decorator which creates a get request, which actually means here /API/tags is a get. This is why here we're writing get decorator, which actually means creating a function without the decorator doesn't do anything. This is why for every function that must work for our API, we must provide here some decorator like get, post, delete, whatever we need to. Now the question is, how do we provide a route? As you saw here inside our app controller, we don't provide here any route. This is why we can see on our /, so this is default homepage, this hello world, which actually means if we don't provide anything, then this get will be our default homepage. and we don't need this because we really want to implement /tags. Actually, here everywhere you can see /API, but as our project is only isolated API, I don't see any point to write everywhere /API. So we will always write the URL without API. This is why we want to create /tags. And for this we need in our controller to write tags like this. So what does it mean? Actually, this means that we are registering this whole controller, so all methods inside this controller, with prefix tags, which actually means that now we can jump here in our localhost 3000 and write /tags. Now I'm hitting enter, and as you can see, we're getting status code 404 cannot get tags. So actually this is happening because we're using wrong command. Actually, as you saw in our web server, we used yarn start. Now let's look on our package.json. As you can see, there are lots of commands that are already prepared for us from Nest.js. And here a start command that we're using, this is just Nest start. So what it does, it simply transpiles our project and that's all. And actually all our changes that we made are simply not there, because this command is not doing any changes until we restarted it. So actually start is not the command that we want to use for development. And as you can see here, we also have start dev, start debug, and start prod. And as you can understand, prod is for production, debug is for additional verbose messages, and dev is for development. So let's now start with start dev. Then we have this ---- watch, and this is exactly refreshing on our changes. This is why here we want to write yarn start, and here will be dev. As you can see now, we have command nest start ---- and here we can see starting compilation in watch mode. And now actually this information here is important, because as you can see here we have started nest application, and here we have tag module dependencies initialized. And this actually means that we successfully binded our tag module, because in other case it won't be registered here. So as you can see here, we can see all modules that we binded. And as you can see here, we also have app controller, this is the default ones, and here we have tag controller, and this is /tags, which actually means with this line that we successfully created our first route /tags. Also here on the bottom you can see this mapped line, so actually mapped, then /tags get. This part is exactly our function, so this function, because here all functions that were registered will be written. As you can see here, for example, for app controller we have mapped, here we don't have any URL, so it is home, and here is get, so this is home URL, and this is /tags get. Now let's check if it's working. So let's jump in browser and reload the page. And as you can see here, we have /tags, and we returned our array of data. So actually we successfully created our first module, tag module, and our first controller. And we even created here our first method, findAll, where we returned the array of plain data.